This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this is the 10th of May, 2022. My name is Peter Kafka, and I'll be moderating this call tonight. This is for advanced recurrent prostate cancer. Before I get going, I neglected last night to mention we want to get back in the rhythm of it. Before we start, we want to thank Pfizer and Bayer corporations for their generous support of AnCan so we can run these meetings regularly. They stepped up to bat. Most companies don't support ongoing meetings such as this, but they stepped up in a kind of a pilot program, and we're thankful for them. They in no way determine what we say, and we're not pushing their drugs or anything like that, but we're thankful for their support in our work, which probably all of us can say it's helped us to a large degree, these calls. Okay. Get going here. So usually people who are new go to the front of the line, and I'll ask some questions just so we can get a little bit of background before we start. The person they have new right now is Peter Sabold, right? And Peter, where are you from? You gotta turn your mic on, Peter. There you go.
Yes, there we go. Yes, Peter, and I say Seibold.
Seibold.
Some people say, some people say C, but it's Peter Seibold from Toronto, Canada. First time attendee. And I think I was given your name through the Warriors group in Canada. I'm part of a Warriors peer group. Do you want a bit of a history, or do you want to just ask me questions, or how do we?
I'll ask you a few questions to start off with. How old are you?
I am 81 years old.
Okay, you live in Toronto, and I'm assuming you've got some form of high-grade prostate cancer.
Yeah, stage four prostate cancer, diagnosed in November of last year.
Okay, so more recently, within the last 6 months. Okay. And do you remember what your Gleason score on PSA level were when you were diagnosed?
Gleason was 9. And PSA now is I think it's 0.5, 0.5. I went on hormone treatment right away, and then I've done some radiation and in the middle of a chemo program, chemotherapy, DOCETAXEL right now.
Okay. And where are you being treated in Toronto?
Primarily at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto, but for the radiation, I go to Princess Margaret in Toronto. But my primary oncologist is at St. Mike's.
Okay. And do you know what kind of radiation you're getting?
Well, I did get it in September. I had 5 sessions on my sacrum early December, and then latter part of December, 5 sessions directly on the prostate and the right pubic ramus.
Okay. And so it's obviously metastasized, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
They find that through just a regular CT scan, or did you have a PSA?
Well, I think it was, I can't remember. I would think it's through a CT scan. The other thing I should say, Peter, is almost right up front, they found out that I had the traditional prostate cancer, the adenocarcinoma, but also apparently the much more rare, more aggressive sarcomatoid carcinoma. Hopefully somebody here has some experience with that. I can find out almost nothing, either from my doctors or what I Google. So I have the two forms of cancer. Both are spreading. We don't know exactly which is where. I started chemo probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, I guess.
Okay. Have you done any genetic or genomic testing at all?
I'm part of a, oh gosh, what do you call it? A volunteer group.
Clinical trial.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Clinical trial, yes.
So they test for any hereditary or genomic mutations at all before they started chemo?
Yeah, there nothing at this point. I mean, I'm going by memory. Would it be right that they would have looked at 20,000 genes, of which 19 were of significant interest? Of the 19, 17 were negative, and 2 had some wrinkles that they're looking into further. And that's about all I can tell you on it at this point.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, interesting. Were you symptomatic at all? I mean, you're
No, at least again,
just
I'm not a
flu.
yeah, I'm not a medical person at all, and always, very active doing all kinds of sports and stuff like that. And then it was in April, just on my 80th birthday, I all of a sudden noticed blood in my urine. And I've been asked that question a million times. No, 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 no. And then, oops, they sent me for different tests. Nobody said anything about cancer. And it wasn't until September that they started to think about cancer. And then by November, the firm diagnosis that it was had metastasized at stage 4. So the plan is work on the pain and work on trying to minimize the spread of the cancer. So that's the program that we're into now.
Okay. I guess one other question before, for me anyway. What hormone drugs are you on?
Started on Firmagon and then moved to Lupron 3 months ago.
Do they have you on any second line ones like Zytiga or darolutamide or anything of that nature?
No.
Second line anti-androgens. No, you're just on Lupron is what you're saying.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you, Peter.
You're just on Lupron is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Plus chemo.
Plus chemo, right? I get that, but I was asking.
Yeah, the chemo is a DOCETAXEL chemo.
DOCETAXEL, right? Got it. Okay, and how many sessions of that have you had?
I've had 2 sessions, and I have my third one next week.
Okay, so far you're tolerating that, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Usually by the third one, you'll start feeling it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, even the last one, I mean, everybody had warned me, it's going to be terrible, 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 and first one wasn't that bad. Last one was a little bit more, but I get through it, and it takes 4 or 5 days. I get into my chemo fog, and then after 4 or 5 days, I'm fine. But I do recently, my pain level, I keep having to crank up the pain medications. It's primarily hydromorphone, I guess, would be the main pain killer I get, along with some Lyrica. And they started very gently with that, but just today they've ramped up the hydromorphone, both the quick acting and the delayed response stuff.
What was the PSA at diagnosis?
At diagnosis, it was 4 point something.
So had you had PSA tests before you detected the blood in your urine?
Well, yeah, okay. Further background. So 20 odd years ago, starting in 2000, I had problems peeing, you know, couldn't control my peeing and so forth. All kinds of uh, uh, problems and biopsies, several biopsies back then. And PSA, I think, got up to 14, 14 or 16 or something. And then they ended up doing a TERP and said, really, Peter, it's just an enlarged prostate that you have, reamed it out. And that was like magic. Everything was fine from 2002 onwards until a year ago when there's blood in my urine and the wheels fell off. And I said, what happened to stage 1 and 2? And I didn't get any warning. Yeah.
So
Yeah, this can be a strange disease. So do you have any, before we start discussing as a group, do you have any specific questions for us? I mean, do you feel like you're comfortable with the treatment you're getting, the doctors you have, the expertise of them and so forth? Are you comfortable with that? Because
Yeah,
Canada's got a very different system than the US for sure. But at least you're in Toronto, which is much better than some places you could be.
yeah, tough to answer because I don't know enough. I mean, the huge unknown is the sarcomatoid carcinoma, and all I keep getting told it's very rare, very aggressive. And Peter, you have a very interesting case. Well, you know, we're trying to isolate where is the sarcomatoid, where is the traditional adenocarcinoma, and then I say, okay, let's say we know exactly where the sarcomatoid is, the bad one, the really bad one. How are we going to treat it? And I mean, the only thing that is, it's either, I guess, surgery or maybe some kind of radiation prior to surgery, but I don't hear any definitive plans that anybody has for treating sarcomatoid carcinoma. So if any of you
well,
folks have any information or experience on that, boy,
well,
and then
okay.
the other challenge in Canada is we're not nearly as advanced as you folks in terms of approvals. The FDA has approved, for example, I want to get a PSMA test, and that's not approved. I can go ahead and buy the test, I guess, and that would be fine. But they say we don't recognize the data for PSMA. So there's little questions like this that I don't. Am I getting good care by reputation? Yes. The doctors I'm working with, the hospitals I'm working with, are good hospitals. All of the people, top to bottom, in the hospitals, I'm blown away how interested they are in their jobs and how passionate they are about caring. I mean, it's
Right.
at least my experience, it's a whole new sub-society of people that really care about what they're doing.
Do you know if your oncologist specializes in prostate cancer? He'd be called a genitourinary medical oncologist. And they're not that prevalent. There's not that many of them throughout North America.
Great question. I'm guessing she's not specialized in it, but I haven't asked the question.
Okay.
So
Let me throw it open to everybody else. I myself have never heard of sarcomatoid. Does anybody have any information on this or experience with this?
well, I mean, I just did a quick literature search, and there are a few papers out there about it. And the real question I had, Peter, is, and I didn't catch this, did they do any genetic testing on your tumor?
I'm sorry, did they do any testing? What?
Any genetic testing on either you or your tumor?
No, all I know, Herb, is when I signed up for this clinical trial, they took a bunch of blood samples, and then they came back with this one very, I think, cursory report about, okay, they've looked at 20,000 cells. I'm not sure. 19 were of interest. Of the 19, 17 were negative. 2 raised some more questions. I think the answer to your question would be very limited.
Well,
In
I mean,
terms
I
of,
think,
The question is, when they did that, did they do it based on a blood sample, on a spit sample, or on a tumor sample?
Oh, on the tumor sample. Back then it was on the tumor sample.
So they took so they took your biopsy and they analyzed your biopsy?
Yes.
Okay, so
And I've had 2
likelihood
biopsies.
is okay, so the likelihood is that was, but it sounds like too big a panel. The panel, it just isn't that big. The panel should be around 300 to 500. So I don't really know what they were looking at. And a couple of issues. I mean, one is that you can get, they'll tell you that a lot of things that are not available in the U.S. That are available in the U.S. are not available to you, but that isn't the case. So, for example, Foundation Medicine will work with you to do an analysis of your tumor. And Foundation Medicine Canada, I can put the link in for you momentarily in the chat window. The chat window, by the way, is the bubble or the square that's in the top right of your computer, and there's a lot of things that get posted in there. People provide you information in there. So Foundation Medicine Canada will help you, and they will bring the cost down to a very manageable amount. You have to get your doctors to apply for it. We've encouraged many people in Canada to do that. Secondly, PSMA tests are available in Canada. We know a couple of guys that have gotten them, but they're hard to get. You may have to get it through a trial, but there are ways that you can get a PSMA test. In
Yes,
terms
if
of
I could just interrupt there, I was talking to a doctor in Montreal this morning who does do PSMA tests. And he said, Peter, I can't go into all the detail with you. Please have your oncologist talk to me. He doesn't think it would give her, my oncologist, any more significant information, didn't think it was worth it. And then separate from him, he said, look, you can go to this clinic, also in Montreal, $3,200, and they'll do it for you, no questions asked.
Right.
And
So to answer, look, we're not docs, but from our experience, I understand where that Montreal doc is coming from. I mean, if there are how many lesions did they see in your body when you first were scanned?
yeah, gosh, I don't know. My wife just walked in, and her answer is quite a few. I mean, and they're growing. The list is growing.
Okay. Do you think there were more than 5?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So I understand from that standpoint why it wouldn't make a difference and why he's telling you that. What may make a difference is the type of chemotherapy that they're giving you. And I don't know enough about sarcomatoid. I'm trying to figure out who we've worked with in the past who's had it. I found one person going back 6 or 7 years, a guy who many years ago did have some sarcomatoid, and they added platinum-based chemotherapy and etoposide. And what concerns me is that you're working with a general oncologist who just isn't on top of this, and I think you've got to figure out a way to get yourself to an oncologist who can either collaborate with your lady or can direct your treatment. As Peter said,
Do we
there
know
aren't a
anyone
whole
like that in
lot.
Canada? Rick, do we know
As
any genitourinary doctors in Toronto or Montreal?
Peter, I'll get to it if you don't interrupt me.
Okay, man.
I'm heading there, man.
His PSA is too low for a PSMA PET scan. Cover that, Rick.
I can't hear.
Okay, it's irrelevant, Jeff, because he doesn't need one. right?
True, but
So
if he wanted one, it's too low. He
but
should
he
know
doesn't
that.
need one. So why are we
Okay.
talking to him
Okay.
about it? We just said
Yeah,
that.
let's
Please,
stick with the doctor issue.
please, Jeff. Okay, in terms of docs, yes, there are docs on the West Coast, and there are a couple of, I think there are a couple in Toronto, and I got to go look, and I'll try and see what I can uncover for you right now. But yes, there are a couple of doctors, and I just cannot think of the names off the top of my head. But give me a moment, and I'll look for them. Out west, there's a guy in BC, and his name is it's a Korean name. Anyone else remember? I think it's something Kim. Kim something. Let me look and see. But the other thing to do if you're willing to travel is to find somebody in the US and ask your doc if she'll work with that person if she's not specialized in prostate cancer.
Yeah, I'm certainly willing to do that. Ideally, I would hope for somebody in Canada, but number one objective is just to cure this thing, and if that means going to wherever, I would do it.
Let me
Just
just
back to
say
the
to you,
name in Toronto that I keep hearing about is Fleshner,
yeah,
F-L-E-S-H.
but Neil Fleshner is a urologist. He's not a medical oncologist. He
Okay,
likes to think
interesting.
he is, and we know him. It's like Larry Klotz. These guys, because there's a shortage, they tend to practice on advanced prostate cancer, but they're not the right doc. In our view, we wouldn't be going to see them. That's not
Yes.
to say Neil Fleshner couldn't help you, but he's a urologist. He's not a medical oncologist, and so he's not trained in internal medicine. Let me just one thing you just said that's really important, Peter. Nothing will cure you at this point in time. Okay, there is no cure whether you've got sarcomatoid or neuroendocrine or adenocarcinoma. Nothing will cure advanced prostate cancer. We don't have that in our bag of tools right now.
Right.
What we have is the ability to manage this disease for as long as you live and for something else to kill you. We can only talk about cure for men who have very low rate disease. There isn't a guy on this call who can contemplate cure. That's our belief. Okay, and doctors who use the word cure, they need to be drilled down on to find out why. So I just want to say that to you. That doesn't mean to say we can't get you another 10 years with the right treatment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I do have that message, in fact, from all of the medical folk that I deal with, and so we're working on extending my life, and get the best possible quality of life, and still keep this cancer thing under control to whatever extent we can.
So Rick, can I say something?
Go ahead, Herb. While Rick is kind of looking around at docs in Eastern Canada.
Okay. So Peter, so my limited reading of just cruising through the literature right now indicates that not only is there a histological difference between adenocarcinoma and the sarcoidosis variation, but there's also genetic differences. So really, I really would I'm not sure what kind of genetic testing you had, but I think Rick's suggestion of foundation medicine is important. The other thing that I don't know, and it's not clear from the literature, is whether or not the sarcoidosis variation expresses PSMA.
At least the work that we have done so far, Herb, says it does not express PSA.
PSMA.
Oh, and I believe the same for PSMA.
Okay, so
In other
therefore,
words, what the doctor told me this morning, and sorry if I can just interrupt, is the PSMA will not identify the sarcomatoid cancer, but it would identify the traditional adenocarcinoma.
okay, so let me make this suggestion. So there is a tracer called FDG,
Called which?
which will, it's a fluorescent, it's a radioactive PET tracer called FDG, which is taken up by all tumors, including sarcoidosis type tumors. Okay. So if you had if you had comparison scans with FDG, which picks up everything, and PSMA, which picks up the adenocarcinoma, will help let people know where the different carcinomas are localized and perhaps the degree to which you have each. So while one scan of PSMA may not be appropriate in your situation because you have tumor that doesn't express it, this other tracer can pick it up. So I would say one thing you can ask the doc you spoke to, saying, you know, here's what I've found out is there's another tracer that picks up all cancer because it's looking at metabolism rather than PSMA expression. So to me, that would be a useful diagnostic approach to be able to differentiate where one of them.
Right.
That sounds very interesting. And again, sorry for my ignorance on this, but I think some of the testing they've already done has located all of the different locations of combined cancers. And the thing they have not yet done is separate out which are the sarcomatoid cancers and which are the adeno. And then what I got from the guy this morning was the PSMA would not pick up the sarcomatoid, but it would pick up all the others. Therefore, by definition, you figured out which are sarcomatoid and which are the adeno. And then I said, well, wouldn't that make a difference in the treatment? Because we know for the traditional cancers, you know, some kinds of chemo work or some kinds of radiation work. And then we only have to worry about the sarcomatoid. And if it's only a tiny bit, I don't know. Anyway, I think we can get that far if we get the PSMA.
But I think also the doc may be correct in one sense. It's not clear to me from, again, reading this quick scan through the literature that the treatment approach is going to be different.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where does it get us?
So in the, do you know what the chat window is online? Up on
I see it here somewhere.
It's on the side. You've got it on.
It's up in the, if in a PC, it's the upper right-hand corner.
And all the chats are automatically.
Oh yeah, okay, I've got the chat here, yes.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that Rick put in there. One is the Canadian website for Foundation Medicine. And you can talk to them. You can call them up and ask how.
Yeah, okay, that's the Foundation
Medicine testing is covered.
Foundation Medicine Canada, yes.
Okay, you can call them up and talk to them and find out how it's covered or whether it's covered. And they're located out of Boston.
Okay.
But they do all the tumor testing and look for, because as Rick pointed out, it might be significant information in terms of treatment. So in my situation, my tumor had mutated to a BRCA mutation. And when I went through chemo a couple of years ago, I did a platinum-based drug as well as docetaxel, which was indicated for my mutation. And it worked. At least it's worked so far. So this is information. So you can call them up and find out if you're eligible in Canada to get that kind of genomic testing, or whether you've already done it, or you just clarify it. And also Dr. Kim at UBC is listed there as well
Yeah.
on that information. And he's what's called a genitourinary medical oncologist. And if you contact their office, they might be willing. You know, I know going from province to province is not always easy there, but he might be able to do a phone consultation with your doctor and get some more expert eyes on this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm sensing, that you've got an unusual situation. You know, low PSA diagnosis, and yet metastatic disease, and it's causing you pain and so forth. And you want to be able, as Rick said, this is you might be able to manage this and get years out of it. You. But you need to be under the right care.
Yeah. A very general, maybe simple question. Again, talking to the pain guy this afternoon, who's boosted up the level of hydromorphine that I can take. So that's great. I don't have a sore shoulder, so maybe I can swing a golf club or rake the leaves or whatever. Is there a risk at doing damage to my body because I'm not feeling any pain, so I get too aggressive and trying to walk too far or swing a golf club? Is that a dumb question?
There's no dumb questions in this one. Anybody want to answer that?
Yeah, I'd like to say one thing.
One thing that should have been discussed with you already is a bone strengthener. So have they talked to you about putting you on any type of bone strengthener, like Xgeva, denosumab, or Zometa? I mean, that again is standard treatment. Again, this is one of the reasons why we feel it's so important that you have a genitourinary doctor working with you.
Yes, they have definitely talked to me about, number one, my bones are much weaker right now and I need to be, or brittle, be very concerned about that, and doing additional bone density tests, a more sophisticated test than the one I've already had, to get a better handle on that.
Yeah,
and then I guess you try and marry that to the
the issue,
activity that you
Peter.
want to do and assess the risk. Does
Here's
anybody
the
been
issue,
through
Peter.
that?
We know that when a man is put on long-term hormone therapy, which is right now what you're looking at, that bone density tests should be done up front, like last November, and they should immediately start some sort of bone strengthening program. Now, here we are 6 months out, and you're still not on a bone strengthening program.
Oh, I should say that I am on calcium right from the get-go.
Right.
A fairly
But
high amount of calcium pills
but you
every
need
day.
more than calcium, Peter. You need a drug, either zoledronic acid, which is known as Zometa, or some lesser form of zoledronic acid, some lesser concentrated form, or you need some type of denosumab, which can be Xgeva or Prolia. It's all the same drug, it's just a different amount in the dose. And again, this is something that you should be raising with your doc. You know, should I be getting, I wouldn't even say, should I be getting this? You should be saying, you know, I understand this is right and I would like to get it.
Yeah, my wife is she's hearing some of this and I can't hear both sides of it. She is telling me that I've already had Xgeva.
Okay, so you are
before I
getting
started
it.
the chemo.
Okay, and that Xgeva should be given to you every 6 weeks. Are you getting it is it 4 weeks or 6 weeks, guys? I forget.
I get it every 6 weeks.
Okay, so you are getting a bone strengthening drug. Your wife,
Yeah.
your wife is very welcome, by the way. She doesn't have to stay out the picture. If she's got the
That's what
facts,
I
we
tell her,
want
to
to
get
talk to.
closer. You
Come on
better to
in.
look at her than me.
That's right.
But also, I'm very lucky to have her. She comes to all of the meetings. She takes incredible notes. She's smarter than I am, but she stands in the background. So come
Well,
closer.
she doesn't have to, and you're welcome at our meetings. Plus, we also have a caregivers meeting that only you are welcome to, and not your husband, because those are the meetings where you can moan and groan about him. And there's a Chinese rule. We don't talk about what we hear in that meeting in this meeting. So if you haven't signed up for our reminders yet, we need your email. We can sign you up, and we'll send your wife the caregivers reminder.
Okay, I did right at the beginning. I did put my email in there. Does that mean you
Okay,
guys
then we'll take care of that. And I'm still going through. I'm probably going to have some more names for you. There's a guy in Ottawa, but I cannot remember his name, so I've got to go through my list of all the doctors. And I think that there's a guy. I think there's a guy in Toronto, but I'm honestly not sure. Is Len with us today?
Yes, I am, sir.
Len, who are the docs? I know that with Marguerite that you've looked around for ages. Who have you come up with in Canada?
No, I never actually searched for doctors for Marguerite. They had a doctor they were happy with. And to tell you the truth, I don't ever recall her mentioning who that was. So I'm sorry, I can't be of much help here.
Here, so I'm being treated in Ontario, in Ottawa, and I know that in Princess Margaret, there's an Antonio Fanelli. He's a urological oncologist.
Antonio, and what is the last name?
Antonio Fanelli, urological oncologist.
Yeah, that's a urologist, Tony.
Okay, you don't want that.
That's
Okay.
not a medical oncologist,
Oh,
unfortunately.
I see. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's Dr. Morash in Ottawa, but he's a urologist. Okay.
Yeah, so we're looking for people.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah, it's tricky because a lot of urologists pass themselves off as oncologists.
Got
it. It's a rare breed. There's only about 100 of them in the whole of North America. So it's search
Yeah,
and
well,
try to uncover them.
What I'm hearing from you folks is that I really need to try and up the level of care, the level of expertise somehow.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you know, one of the things that we can do, and I would, you might want to, I don't know whether I would clear it first or not, but I mean, we can certainly set you up with docs over here that would cooperate with docs in Canada and know the docs in Canada and who are experts. No problem. I mean, and I've got a couple of people in mind, but you may have to travel down here one time to see him the first time.
No, I'm quite willing to do that.
You know, I've got two people in mind. One in Minneapolis, which isn't that far. It's not that close, but it's not that far. But there's a really great doc in Minneapolis, and there's another one in Houston, and both of them are really familiar with these variant types of cancers. And I would suggest both those names, but they would have to be, they'd be willing. I suspect they'd be willing to work. I'm pretty certain they'd be willing to work with your doc, but your doc would have to be willing to work with them. Here we go. I've got the guy in Ottawa. I knew I'd find it. His name is Michael Ong, O-N-G. Let me put his information in the chat window for you. I can't tell you much about him. I think I've heard him present, and I made a note of his name. So
I see it. Yes, I see it in there. Thank you.
Okay, so he, and obviously that would be a lot more convenient for you. So you might want to reach out to him, but I don't know that he's of the quality of these docs that we're talking about. I mean, the guy in Minneapolis, is Joe Blanchett on today?
No.
No. Okay. I mean, we've got one guy who travels from Washington D.C. or Virginia to see him because he used to be at Hopkins on the West Coast. And do we have any other Antonucci guys on the call here today?
I don't think so. I don't think he's been in Minnesota long enough for that.
But no one else who's seen Antonucci at Hopkins. But we've got two guys, but you might want to. I mean, Kim Chi is really good. He's got a great reputation, but again, that's crossing the country. Ong, I think, is local, and I'll keep an eye on that chat window, and I'll try and put it in, or I'll send it to you directly, just to you. And
Peter, give us your email so we can keep in touch with you, and keep coming.
We have it, Peter.
Okay, we have it. Okay, so keep. Okay.
Yeah, I put it in when I put my name in.
Okay, keep in touch with us because we're going to move on because other guys have things they want to consider.
No, exactly. No, I really, really appreciate the amount of time you've given me so far. It's a huge mental boost to have the interest that you guys are showing. It helps.
Yeah. Well, many of us have gone through this for many years and all kinds of. Okay.
At the wait 1 second. At the Prostate Cancer Foundation meetings, there was a nurse from Canada who was one of the speakers. She was talking about the fact that there's groups of nurses up there that help advanced prostate cancer people, that the urologists are not up to date enough to help. I didn't get her name, unfortunately, but she was adamant about the fact that there's groups in Canada of nurses in Canada that do this and specialize in hard cases. You might want to look into it.
Okay.
Well, if you can find any more information, Jeff, put it in the chat window. Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Sure, Peter. Take care. Jefferson. There you go.
Yes.
You want to introduce yourself? You say you've been on the calls before, but it's been a while, right?
Oh, yes. About 3 years. I've been with this for about 3 years.
And where are you from?
Well, my doctor's in Rochester, University of Rochester, in Rochester, New York. And
Okay.
I'm from basically Syracuse. But I've got a lot of my stuff here, and I've gone through a few things, but it's a scary situation, but I don't need to tell any of you that because
Okay. Well, don't go through it all. Don't go through the whole history, but give us an idea where you are in your journey right now. You say you're just doing Provenge?
Provenge, yes, I did that. I have been on enzalutamide. I'm on a study which is run by Dr. Peter J. Van Veldhuizen, MD. It's a clinical trial, and it is, these names are, as far as the medications are concerned, but DOCETAXEL is part of it, and there are 3 other things, but their treatment goal is remission, and I am what you might call asymptomatic as far as most of my symptoms, and it's good for me, but it's frustrating at sometimes because they say, okay, we're doing good. Yes, go ahead.
Sir, we need to start from the beginning here.
Sure. Ask me a couple of questions.
Okay. When were you first diagnosed, Jefferson?
That was in 4/20/19.
And okay, and you're sounds like you're doing chemotherapy now.
Yes, I've
things.
gone through two different hormone treatments, and they stopped because they stopped reducing my PSA.
So you're resistant to them. Okay.
Yes.
And are you metastatic? When you say you're not symptomatic?
Oh yes, I am metastatic. That was my diagnosis. My first diagnosis was metastatic prostate cancer.
Okay.
When they did my PET scan at that time, I lit up like a Christmas tree.
Okay. And are you under the care of an expert medical oncologist?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
My doctor is working underneath the doctor.
Right.
And
are you still seeing Dr. Victor? Are you still with Dr.
am.
Victor? Okay.
Yes.
And Dr. Victor works for Dr. Van Velderhuizen or whatever his name is.
Yes.
In Rochester, at the Wilmot Cancer Center, right?
You got it.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, this Jefferson's been on the call before, guys.
Right.
Keep an eye on the chat window, please, organizers.
Yes, I remember.
Right. Now, what is this trial that you're on?
It is, okay, I'm trying to find it, but, let's see, it's IGUP 20133, and it has 3 different drugs. ENTRUMADENANT. I could type these up in the window if you wanted me to.
Yeah, I mean, do you have the trial number there? There's a number that starts NCT 0. Do you have that number?
The end part is it's a ARC-6, and then there's a long study number before Von Velderhuizen's name. It's study 0, a bunch of zeros and a 5748, and then a IGUP 20133.
Okay. Herb, can you track it down?
Yeah, but that's local to Rochester. It's local to Rochester.
Okay.
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Is there no number that starts NCT? Do you have something on there that starts NCT and then a whole bunch of numbers after it, about 7 numbers?
No, I have not.
See that. Okay. All right.
So what about the drugs? What are the drugs?
Okay. My pronunciation may not be that good, but ENTRUMADENANT, and then ZIMBERELIMAB, and then DOCETAXEL.
Okay, docetaxel is the last one.
Docetaxel, yes.
Right.
And what's the first one?
Okay. How about I do this? Come on.
How spell it? Just put it in the chat window.
Yeah,
that's what I was just
gonna do.
That's what I was just gonna work on.
Yeah, there's great plan.
Tell you what, in the interest of time, Jeff, put some info in the chat window, and we'll let somebody else talk for a while, and then we'll come back to you.
That's a great idea. That's a very good idea. I'll mute my mic and
okay.
Have a good one.
Okay. Carl, let's go with you for a while.
Oh, okay. Thank you. The first thing I wanted to mention is that, well, first I had blood work yesterday. My PSA from my previous reports was down from 62 at my initial therapy, which is as recommended by Rick and Herb and other people on this call, for Jevtana with carboplatin and I had actually my 5th treatment today. So as of yesterday, from the original of 62, which went down to 4, now it's up to 6. The oncologist has said, well, you know, it is going to fluctuate. I did chat with Herb earlier just to disclose that, and because I know Herb was on that regimen, right, Herb? I believe you were on the same regimen.
Not exactly, but it's
Okay.
close.
Okay, so you know, I'm not freaking out. The oncologist said yes, it can fluctuate. We're going to continue on with the therapy. I am also having scans finally this Thursday. So I say finally because the last time I had the scans was just before going on to this treatment regimen, and it's going to be a whole body bone scan and a CT of the chest, abdomen, and pelvis. So that'll be a little bit more definitive to see where things are at. The oncologist is hopeful that he'll see further regression of the cancer on my body, and I'm expecting that as well. But in addition, something that kind of funny, but not funny to the oncologist, is that since I knew I was having the blood work yesterday and I had it through Quest, and I wanted to make sure that he had it the next morning, this morning, to have the results. So I've occasionally written on the script stat to make sure that it was done quickly. So I guess as Herb might know what happened, because my oncologist said to me, he said, you know, did I write stat on this notation? And I said, oh no, I put it on there. And he said, you need to understand when stat is put on this, they will call the doctor at any time of the night. So they called him at 1 o'clock this morning to let him know the results were available. So he said, please don't do that again. I had no clue, you know, and it wasn't the first time I had done it. I had done it probably about twice before because I figured, wow, this is great. They really get the results quickly. But now I know what the downside is. So
We've got television to thank for that.
oh.
You know, Carl, we have your number, but Carl, but most of the docs, they don't have your number. You know, we could charge them to tell them about you. We could.
Anybody have any questions for Carl? How are you doing on the chemo regimen? You tolerating it okay?
Oh,
He
yeah.
looks great.
Yeah.
You look great.
No significant side effects whatsoever. No nausea. No pain. It's working well.
Good. Anybody else have any? Carl?
Do you have a PSMA PET?
What was the question?
Did you have a PSMA PET?
I have. This was even before having the current therapy. So it's not the scan that I'm having on Thursday.
Anybody else? Yeah, well, good. Good report. You look bright. I'm happy for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Carl, how are you doing on this chemo, and especially with the carboplatin? I mean, you know, you got all your hair still after 5 treatments. You got your beard. I mean, you so tell us a little bit about that, because so many guys go through chemo. You're going through double, and seems like you're tolerating it well. I mean, that's helpful information for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the Jeftana, which is also Capacitaxel, it's a infusion which takes about an hour, and the carboplatin takes about a half an hour. So the whole thing is an hour and a half, not considering setup and stuff like that. So in advance of me getting the infusion, they hit me with dexamethasone. They want to make sure that I've had a Claritin, which I take every morning, and there is a Pepsid that they also give me in advance. So I'm sure all of that helps. And at the end of the treatment, they do give me Neulasta, which is used to help build the white blood cells as the treatment does affect the bone marrow. I can say that with the blood work, the liver enzymes, the AST is somewhat elevated, but not enough to cause a delay in the treatment. And it's not unexpected because it's a somewhat toxic type of a treatment, and it does tend to affect the liver, which to mitigate that, I've got to drink a lot of water. And now within the next 72 hours, my instructions are that when I pee in the toilet, I have to close the lid and I have to then flush it and have no one else use that toilet for 72 hours because of the toxicity of the urine, I guess, with this medication.
Wow. Okay.
And I just came back from a cruise. I came back on Sunday. I went away a week on a Royal Caribbean ship down to the Caribbean. I had no issues. I was, crossing my fingers that I could handle the trip, and everything went fine.
Great. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
So Peter, you had a very similar regimen, chemo regimen to Carl. Did they advise you about the urinating in the bowl and closing the lid and nobody could use it 72 hours? I never heard that before.
No, I never heard of it either.
That's weird.
Yeah, and they even said, well, if I should miss the bowl, I need to clean it up. I need to rubber gloves and make sure that it's sanitary. And so, okay.
Well, a lot of people have told me to do that anyway.
Yeah.
Sounds like you need a biohazard sticker on your forehead, Carl.
Hey, look, when I had that PSMA scan a while back, somebody had asked about that. I was deemed to be radioactive after that scan, and I was actually driving from Long Island at Stony Brook all the way to central New Jersey, which was almost a 2-hour ride. And they actually gave me a card that if I were to be stopped by the police at any of the bridges or tunnels, which is a possibility, then I would show them the card to say, their radioactive detectors could very well go off and they could stop me. So thank goodness that didn't happen.
Well, that I can understand. It's radioactivity, but the chemotherapy, that makes no sense to me. I don't know. What do you think, Herb? Does that make any sense at all?
Doesn't make sense to me. You really have to take enough to knock. I mean, Carl, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, it's easy enough to comply with, so.
Yes.
We do have 3 bathrooms in our house, so my wife just goes to another bathroom.
For me, when I got I'm sure you got the same thing. When I had the lutetium, basically, I had to sleep in a different room for 3 nights.
Yeah.
Carl, when I had docetaxel, before I went to get it, they had a seminar at Hopkins where everybody was getting chemo of all types had to go and get a little primer on what they had to do. And they told me that there was various things that I had to do. And one of them that somehow came up was that one of my duties in the house is to clean the cat boxes. And they told me
you can't do.
They told me I was exempt from that. But my MO said that's not true. You're back on duty. So that's interesting. I still didn't do it for a while, but he said that was what he did say that kind of made sense is that to give the same seminar and the same instructions to people going through all kinds of different chemotherapy didn't make a lot of sense. But I don't know the extent of that.
Yeah, and one other thing, they did also say I needed to flush twice. So easy enough to do. That's my story.
Okay. Before we go back to Jeff, Carlos, why don't you update us a little bit about it? You haven't been on for a while, where you are. Carlos?
Okay, how is that?
I think I hear you. Yep, we hear you.
Okay, So I most recently had a PYLARIFY scan done. This is about 6 months after I had my Provenge. The good news is it appears that things have stabilized, and multiple of my bone lesions have become sclerotic. There's still a couple that are still hot. Overall, there's no progression, and what I found most intriguing was that whereas I had some pelvic lymphadenopathy, they are reading no suspicious abdominal or pelvic lymphadenopathy. So all in all, I think I'm doing pretty well.
Good.
Now, I do have a question regard to this reading. Unfortunately, it was compared to a scan last fall. That was already after I'd been on dual ADT for about 8 months. 2 years ago, December is when things went crazy, and I had multiple lesions everywhere. And I don't know why they didn't go back to read that, other than they were not allergic to that. I do seem to recall that the group had talked earlier this spring about having somebody in particular read our PYLARIFY scans, because it's a new item for many radiologists. So comparisons, yeah, I mean, they definitely admitted that SUVs were not comparable, but wouldn't move to the direction of how that impacts on any of their reading.
Well, Kurt, I think, let's hope that the Provenge does something. No way to tell or monitor or anything, but I'm glad you did it. I'm sure Herb's glad he did it.
Yeah, my big question now is when do I move to lutetium? My oncologist in Phoenix has left me 2 months ago now, saying, well, if it comes back bad changes, then we'll be talking sooner, but otherwise he's not scheduled any appointment with me at this point.
Right. Lutetium's on hold right now anyway.
Do I push for that to continue this process, or do I wait until we see a change?
Herb, do you want to, lutetium's on hold for now anyway, right? Herb, do you have any more information?
No kidding. Right. It is on hold. And
it is in this
they say 6 weeks. I'm not, hopefully that's just not optimistic that it's real. I have a feeling, we don't know. I'm going to try to grill the people when I go to AUA this weekend I'm going to hit them up for information. But my sense is that because they have 2 products that are depending on lutetium, one of which is PYLARIFY, not PYLARIFY. At any rate, they have 2 products that depend on lutetium. They've discontinued both of them temporarily. So my sense is that it's the lutetium that it's the problem, not the linker. That I think
Lutathera.
Right, Lutathera is also discontinued, right? And so my best guess is that they're not having trouble making lutetium. Now, whether it's because they can't get raw materials out of the Congo or something like that, it's not at all clear.
And my understanding is that the lutetium is still available in Australia, and that we have a plant in the U.S. in New Jersey that should be coming online in a matter of a few weeks.
I don't think so, Carlos. I mean, they've shut down the Melbourne, New Jersey plant, and they've shut down Ivrea in Italy, both the plants.
Yes, I know European countries were shut down.
Yeah, and there's
So
guys hanging right now.
I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's anything coming online in 2 weeks that we've heard about. But you could be right. But
I'm sorry, I said a few weeks because that was undefined. However, I had not heard that the New Jersey site was also in the same boat.
Yeah. I mean, what the information that I have, which is from a reliable source, but I don't want to name sources, is that it's probably going to be a lot longer than 6 weeks. And that is what we were told. If you remember, did they say 6 weeks back in November? I don't know. I mean, Len made a really astute comment on this, which is that what the heck's the FDA doing here? Because we knew back in November that there were issues, logistical issues, and I think actually quality issues. And they had to shut down, and then they reopened again in mid to late February. They got their approval in March, and now they're back closed again 4 weeks later. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Len, what your thoughts on this? Because you have some experience here.
Well, no, not really. It's just that I do know that the FDA has to inspect production sites anytime they approve a drug or before they approve it. So it is puzzling why they approved this drug and then immediately they have QA problems. Somebody didn't do a good inspection job.
So Len, let me tell you that my inside information from the guy who works for me, his wife is at the FDA. During COVID, they've suspended most inspections.
Whoa.
She hasn't been on an inspection in a long time. So it's very rare now.
Oh, wow. That's not good news.
I will turn the attention back to my original question, which is, should I be pushing to move forward with lutetium, regardless of where I go to get it?
What are you at? Are you still on darolutamide?
I am.
Okay, so right now you're on LHRH plus darolutamide. Is that right, Carlos?
That is correct, as well as Provenge.
Okay, well the Provenge is done, so yeah. So, but you've got Provenge under your belt, and you have chemotherapy, and you have chemotherapy under your belt, correct?
That was done very early on, yes.
Okay, but the reason I'm asking is because you won't be eligible for lutetium if you haven't done chemotherapy, but I think you did it back in 2017, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So, should you be pushing for lutetium? Probably yes. The earlier you get it and the healthier you are, the more likely it's going to have a big impact. But to be honest, you ain't going to get it until they start going, but there's no reason why you couldn't apply for it somewhere. You couldn't ask, whether it's Alan Bryce or whoever your key doc is, ask them to connect you. Oh my gosh, look, we got a visitor just arrived. We got a visitor just arrived from Wyoming. How's Wyoming? It's all right. We're coming back to you, Carlos.
I got drywall here behind me. This is Colorado. Sorry. We'll be back in Wyoming soon. I'm well. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if it were me, I'd be pushing. I mean, I think that it's probably the next best treatment for you to be doing. And why not line yourself up so that when eventually they get themselves sorted out, which they will, then you'll be in line for it. You know, to me, the most interesting thing about lutetium that I don't think we really know about yet, but I'm really interested to hear if there's any intel in this group, is can we give it more than once? And if so, how many times can we give it? I mean, is this the sort of drug that we can repeat like chemotherapy? You do a cycle now, and then when your disease turns again, you do another cycle later on. I mean, that's a huge question mark for me.
See, but what I'm afraid of, Rick, is that you can do that, and then you're going to develop neuroendocrine. You're going to kill off your PSMA positive cells and have an emergent clone that's neuroendocrine.
You know, the issue is that's always the charge against any drug that you stay on for a long period of time. I mean, that's what we've seen with abiraterone and enzalutamide for guys who've stayed on it for 4 and 5 years. So, you know, why should lutetium be any different? In that, I'm not arguing that you're wrong. I'm just saying that we see that already.
Let me pose a different question.
If they've been doing this
Go ahead.
They've been doing this in Australia and Germany for a long time with no interruptions. Why are we not seeing data about from those places about longer term lutetium or what the results are for different guys over years, what their success rate is and so forth? Maybe I'm in the dark and I don't see these things, but it would seem like this information would be forthcoming.
Yeah, but Peter, do we know that they've been doing repeat treatments to men there? We know they've given them cycles. There's plenty of evidence on that. Are we aware that in Germany and in Australia they've been treating men on, you know, recurrence after lutetium? Are we aware of that?
I don't know. We don't know. You think?
Well, that was my question. I mean, I don't think we can sort of be citing Germany or Australia if we don't even know if they've been treating men on a repeat basis. I don't know. That was why I raised it.
There's a doctor called Dr. Michael Hoffman who is in Australia, and he has been doing these trials for a good number of years. And I had previously discussed some time ago that he was in a Zoom meeting, and I actually had the ability of asking him questions. And he talked about a major trial with a lot of participants. I don't remember how many there were, but they followed the patients for a period of 5 years.
Right.
And,
did they repeat treatment? We know this, Carl. We know it. I was on that meeting when you asked him the questions. My question is, what about the guy who gets the treatment and a year or so later, he's failed it? Can he get it again? That's the question that we're asking. Not what the follow-up is. We know we know that, you know, it gives you however many months. I mean, the trial said 3 or 4 months, but largely that was because so many guys were towards the end of life when they got it. But my question is, what trials have been done in terms of repeating this treatment, and what's the level of tolerance? Can we repeat it? And have the guys in Germany or in Italy, in Australia, have they been retreated? It's, you know, it's a retreatment question I'm trying to raise here.
I have a solution to that. If you have a name or two of oncologists in Australia, my wife is looking for some place for us to go in the next month or two, and I can query that as well as see about getting on their program until we get lutetium back at home.
Do you have Ken Anderson's phone number or email, Carlos?
I do not have it handy. If you would forward, that would be great.
Okay, because he's outside of Phoenix. He was just going to start lutetium there, but it's back. But he just went down to Australia for 3 weeks last ago. So I think he's in touch with doctors there because he was considering starting it there. So
Michael
Yeah,
Hoffman. Michael
he did.
Hoffman is he's the main name, the fellow that Carl just mentioned, and Carl I think may have his some of the guys in this group have been in touch with him, but I'll put his name in the chat window. He's a nice guy and he's very
Thank you.
approachable.
okay,
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
thank you. Let's go back to Jefferson for a couple of minutes here. Does anybody have input from the information he put in there? I don't want to belabor this because it's pretty technical, but go ahead. Herb, did you have a chance to look at it?
Right. So I put in the chat window, it's this NCT 0438 1832. So it's got 3 drugs. The ENTRUMADENANT is an adenosine receptor antagonist. So there is evidence, and I presented some of that to this group from PCF and ASCO GU that prostate cancer is also potentially driven by adenosine. And so this is an antagonist of adenosine. That's the ENTRUMADENANT. The ZIMBERELIMAB is a PD-1 checkpoint inhibitor. And DOCETAXEL we know about. So that seems to be what.
The link you gave doesn't work. It says that the number's invalid.
And docetaxel. You lost.
Anybody have any other comments about Jefferson's trial? What he's going through?
Herb, was that a phase 1 or 2? The adenosine. I think. Herb, did you hear me?
Yeah, my headphones died. So I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
That link does not work.
Okay, guys, I think we're stalled a little bit here. I don't want to just skip over this.
Okay, you can move on, Peter.
Okay. And Herb just left, so we can't go to him. Mike Yancey, are you still with us?
I'm still here.
Okay. That's something you wanted to bring up, yeah?
Well, basically, just wanted to provide a little update. 2 weeks ago, I kind of came in as a new person here and kind of gave you a quick background, et cetera. And,
Right.
Based upon the input as well as my feelings that I wasn't getting some of the care that I should be with respect to aggressiveness, et cetera, I think Rick had given me the suggestion to get hold of Dr. E down at Houston Methodist in Houston. So just an update, I've got a meeting with her on the 24th of May to kind of do an interview to see if I can hire her and if she's willing to take me as a patient is how I put it. So that's basically my update.
Hey, I think you'll find her very easy to work with and very knowledgeable.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Yeah, I may talk. I was hoping to speak with her yesterday. She's in the process of moving house. But if I do catch up with her soon, Mike, I'll definitely mention that we sent her over to you and you tell her. And yeah. So do we have any Dr. E, Any people who have seen Dr. E on the call right now that have anything to add or to say? Guess not.
No. Yeah. So, Mike, one of the things you might want to think about going forward, if you start with Dr. E, is if you need treatment, and it's more convenient to be in Tulsa, you might think about someone local who would work with Dr. E. I did that when I went through chemo. I had to find a local doctor where I am who would work under the direction of my urinary medical oncologist. It's a little bit tricky. Because a lot of doctors don't like to work with others, but just keep it in the back of your mind. You don't want to burn all your because it's more convenient for certain treatments to be close to home.
Yeah, my local's already said he's more than willing to work with anyone, so I don't think I have any problem.
Great.
Hey, Peter, this is John. I would just echo that comment. And while I heard the last response that the local doctor in Tulsa has said they'd work with anybody, I can speak from my experience. I went down that path and I hit a lot of barriers. So you're dealing with some strong personalities. People on the appearances are more than willing to work with other doctors, but when push comes to shove, man, the proof is in the pudding. You got to see it. You just got to see it. So if you can figure out a way to test that early on, I'd encourage that. I'd recommend that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with you, John. My experience was that it was like being the telephone operator in the middle. My docs wouldn't actually physically talk to each other. They'd say what they wanted to do, and I'd have to go to the other one saying, well, this person doesn't agree. They don't do this, and I bring studies back and forth. I was like the messenger boy. And when I felt strongly about something and agreed with a certain doctor, I'd have to push the other one to fall into line. It was very interesting.
Yeah. Peter, that's exactly right. And it sounds like you had a lot more success than I did because I couldn't even be an effective messenger boy. It was just, they're two different languages. And if one doesn't want to play, they'll say that they'll do whatever they can so that it appears that they're playing ball, but they'll run you off the track.
You want to say something on this, Rick?
Yeah, I do. I think we have to recognize what often goes on behind the scenes, and then we have to be smart enough to work with it. So a lot of these docs have big egos, even the ones that we really like. And I'm not going to call anyone out, but they all do. And we have to tiptoe around these egos and try and find a way to make the docs work together. Now, it's easier when you've got a specialist doc in, say, genitourinary medical oncology working with a general medical oncologist, although some of the general medical oncologists also have very high opinions of themselves. It's harder when you've got two genitourinary medical oncologists that you're trying to put together, because they both consider themselves to be specialists in the area. And it's even harder if those docs are controversial. And in Peter's case, Peter Kafka's case, he's had controversial docs. And not all the GU medoncs want to work with a controversial doc. In John's case, you've got two GU medoncs who we don't know what's gone on. Maybe one screwed the other in a trial, or we don't know what's behind. They're never going to tell you, they're never going to say to you, no, we won't work with someone. They daren't do that. So they'll say yes, and they'll go as far as they want to go, and then they'll find a reason not to do it. And so I think that when that happens, either you got to confront them and say, hey, what the heck is going on here? Why won't you not talk? This is, my life here, and I need you guys to work together. And one of them is probably going to say, you're going to have to shift away from me. And then you have to make a choice. And that could well be. And you've got to decide who you like best. Now, when it's a general med-onc, like in Mike Yancey's case, who's in Tulsa, sometimes they're only too eager because they can learn so much about treating prostate cancer from being with a GU specialist. And if it turns out that the egos are too strong there, Mike can always find another local person or can go to Dr. A and say, who do you like to work with? You've heard us say this on this call before. Find out from the specialist doc who they like to work with in your area, where they've got a track record of working with somebody else. But we shouldn't be surprised when you put two doctors together that they're not always going to work well together. Some of them do. I mean, I got docs I can suggest, and they're very collaborative, but they're not all that collaborative. Not all of them are. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay. Yeah, good discussion. Good discussion.
Hey, Rick, I think those are great points. The thing I would just point out, because our colleague here is in Tulsa, and I ran into that situation, as you know.
Yep.
The challenge is you got strong egos, and then you got to ask, well, wait a minute, but I'm in Dallas and they're somewhere else, the expert. What do I do when I have a reaction and I need local medical care? You can't burn the local bridge, which is kind of the dilemma I found myself in.
Well, here's what I would say to that, John. You've got to decide who you think has the best knowledge. And that's really only something we can tell you who we think, but we don't know. You've spoken to both of them, you know the chemistry, it doesn't, in your case, both of them, but you've spoken to the two docs. Frankly, the person locally has to be a good technician. They don't have to have the knowledge, because all they're doing is implementing the directions of the quarterback. And so you can find good local doctors who can treat you if something goes wrong. They don't have to be a prostate cancer expert. So if you've got a guy who's local who considers himself to be a prostate cancer expert, but you're not happy with his treatment, my response, if it were me, was I'd find another general medical oncologist willing to work with Dr. E and go, or I'd say to Dr. E, who can you work with locally? And you're my number one. That's how I'd resolve it.
Conceptually, you're right. The challenge is when you have other health considerations that are wrapped around it, and you're into a larger medical center, you just can't, cut the cord. And there are other extenuating circumstances, and that's all I'm suggesting, that take that into consideration as well.
Yeah.
It's a fair point. It can get pretty complex. Okay, well, Herb, welcome back. You had something you wanted to bring up tonight too, outside of everybody else's situation. Yes, can you hear us, Herb? We can't hear you.
Who are you talking to?
Herb. Something matter with your speaker, Herb? Your mic's not on or loud enough or something. Okay, technical problems.
What about now?
No, you got it. We got you.
Okay, Jesus. Okay, as you all know, I had my first Pluvicto injection the day after it was approved, even though it was on this trial. And that was delayed a week because of QC issues. So that should have given us a heads up. And then I was supposed to get another treatment last week, and early in the week we heard the call that it was delayed, and then later in the week, we heard that they've suspended production. But at the same time, I'm monitoring my PSA, and it seems to have gone down a bit from a month ago. So a month ago, it went up from after 3 weeks, it went up from like 3.2 to 6, and now it's back down to 3.2. So maybe this stuff is working, but it's kind of ambiguous at this point.
Yeah, our hearts go out to guys like you and Ken Anderson and Jerry Deans and other ones.
Well, Jerry is the one I worry about more.
Yeah, started on this. I mean, and then all of a sudden it on hold. I mean, it's got to be nerve-wracking to do that.
So, I mean, the fact that it's down means that there's probably a little wiggle room here.
Herb, are you on anything else?
Just ADT. Because it's not clear. I mean, that's the next, the plan B was if it's long-term delay is try enzalutamide. But I don't know if enzalutamide will kick me out of the trial. That's what I've got to find out before we do it.
Yeah, I don't see why it should.
Well, I don't see either, but I don't write the rules.
Right.
Yeah, but Herb, it doesn't matter. Because if it kicks you out the trial,
then we can get it commercially.
If it kicks you out the trial, you just flip over. It won't kick you out. It doesn't kick you out of the approval for the drug.
No.
So the worst that can happen is you can't get it on the trial. You get it commercially, and it's covered by Medicare. So it's really a moot point.
True.
And what I want to say is, we want to hear some excitement and happiness in your voice that your PSA went back from 6 point something to 3.2, and not just it went down, but it's going to go up again. Come on, come on.
All right, so so Rick, is the glass half empty or half full?
Half full right now.
Well, I don't want it to fill up.
Okay.
Guys, will somebody give this man a good talking to, please?
No,
somebody on this call wake him up.
I just need a good shot of bourbon after we're over.
So, other than the glass being half empty or half full, another way to put it is, are we concerned about you or are we happy about you?
I'm happy.
Okay.
If it had gone up, I would have really been apoplectic, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that it went down was very positive. So yes, I was quite happy to hear it.
Okay.
And I am smiling, Rick.
Slightly concerned too. We're all concerned.
I don't know. I haven't been able to get a camera slot. That's why you haven't seen me today. But I'm laughing. I'm laughing here, Herb, and delighted. And let me just, for everybody's edification, they should know that Herb's reference to a bourbon is because he's going to be hanging out on Bourbon Street this weekend and eating beignet at Cafe, whatever it's called, Cafe au lait or whatever it's called.
Cafe du Monde.
And Cafe du Monde, excuse me, because Herb and John Ivory are heading down to the AUA to present our poster on the value of peer support groups, and we've had a pretty good response both from Farmer and from docs. There's a whole number of urologists who are going to be there who plan to look us up, including Herb tells me, although I didn't see, Dr. Kwan, who signed up to be watching our poster, and others today. Guys, we are doing and we'll be publicizing this. we're going to be doing a special presentation on BPH with Steve Kaplan, who is the king of BPH in this country. He's a urologist, and we're doing that on June the 1st. And I know that some of you, even with advanced disease, still may have some issues. So he's a really good guy to listen to, and he's going to be anyway. Herb's our main man. He's going to be presenting for us.
Right, and if there's any,
we wish you well.
Right, and if there's any drug company rep you want me to go to their booth and harass, let me know.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Okay, we still got a couple of guys we want to get to. So I want to welcome Walt. Yeah, Walt's not often with us, but he's been with us before, and he's from the Silicon Valley area. And I've met him before, that group. Walt, you had something you want to bring up?
Excuse me. I was on testosterone supplements to build up my bone strength because I was having tooth implants. And that drove my PSA up from undetectable. And the end of April, it was 0.22 and doubling every 2.2 months. Now, I stopped the testosterone. 2 years ago, I was in the same situation where I had been on testosterone supplements, and my PSA had gotten up to 0.28. And Charles Drake in New York suggested that I stop the testosterone and start Avodart. And that knocked my PSA down to undetectable, and it stayed there for 1.5 years until I started my testosterone again. And I just wanted to let you guys know what the situation was. I'm hoping that my PSA will go down again.
I'm sorry, I haven't been to meetings lately, but you're doing testosterone supplementation with a history of advanced prostate cancer?
Well, this was I did that to build up my bone health because I was having tooth implants.
Right, but I mean, I'm just trying to clarify one point, that you were already suffering from advanced prostate cancer before you did that.
Oh yeah. I'd had.
Who let you do that?
For that, and I did this with the concurrence of Mark Scholes down in L.A. and Charles Drake in New York, and also my local oncologist Shane Dormady.
Yeah, you'd be surprised what you can get away with. And if you've got a doctor who's got some keeps you on a long leash, you can you don't have to panic. Obviously.
If it doesn't go back down, I can get a scan, find out where it is, and play whack-a-mole.
Yeah. I recently half my darolutamide drug to see what effect it would have, and sure enough, my PSA went up, and I decided to go back on the full dose. So, I mean, doctors can give you a long leash to mess around, because particularly if your PSA is low to begin with, you've got some wiggle room there. Anybody else have any comments about?
The only comment I have is I like Joe's hat.
Thanks, Walt. Thanks for. I mean, you're a good example of someone who's working as their own advocate there and managing your disease. And some people would say the risk flag goes up, but you've got a handle on it. So it's good for you for watching it carefully.
Well, Walt, how high did your testosterone get when you started taking the supplement, and did you complete your tooth implants?
Before the tooth implants, my testosterone had gotten up to 0. I guess it got up to 0.33, and then
that's PSA.
Yeah. Oh, the testosterone. my testosterone, I got it up to about 500, and I was limiting by how much I took to keep it in that range.
And have you finished your tooth implants now? Are you done with that?
The tooth implants were successful. I had three
Great.
of them, 3 tooth implants, and they were successful, and that's why I stopped the testosterone.
Okay. Well, good luck, and let's hope you come back down now.
And if I don't, I'll get a scan and find out where it is and zap it.
Okay.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit. That's my attitude too. Okay, Jefferson, let's go back to Jefferson for a minute. Jefferson, do you have any concerns or specific questions now that people have had a chance to look at your stuff? And you said you had an orchiectomy, huh? I mean,
yes, I got tired of acting like a woman, you know, screaming and having emotional garbage. And I said, well, hey, that's going to take at least 95% of that stuff, and it'll be thrown away. And I'm not needing those things for my enjoyment or my living, because it is what it is.
right. It doesn't sound like your voice is going to go into the alto range either.
I have some questions. I realize my hair loss is from the chemotherapy. Has anybody else had chemotherapy where their nose hairs were gone and you have a constant drip of water because of the process of breathing? Part of the I can't remember the term in biology from 1967, but part of using oxygen is one of the byproducts is water vapor and something else, but the water vapor is dripping down my nose and I'm going wacko with it.
There's some stuff called AYR, AYR, and it's sort of like Carmex for the inside of your nose. And my oncologist gave it to me when I was having the same problem. And mine was like everything inside my nose was sloughing off, and it would get bad. And so there's at least try a buck on this stuff called AYR, see if it helps, man.
Because I had a stupid accident. I got dizzy in church up in the choir loft, and I leaned forward and I got a very strong push on my breastplate, and it was after 2 days later I got scans because of my trial, and they discovered a pulmonary embolism. So now they put me on blood thinners, and that's okay. And and I found out I had problems trying to sleep laying down. And eventually I figured out something. I put tissues up my nose to catch the moisture for a while, and then I could lay back and I could go to sleep without having that trickle down my throat. And these are stupid little things that I've discovered. And
you're on, when you're on a trial, I mean, you're taking some powerful drugs there, and acts a little bit differently. And I mean, Carl went through some of that too on trials, where all of a sudden you get a reaction to something that comes out of the blue, and the doctors are scratching their head. Nobody really quite knows what to do, because trials or drugs that are on trial. They don't have a audience yet, and everybody doesn't know. So,
but outside of that, I can say that I am basically asymptomatic, and I'm just happy to be alive. And that's the
Good.
best part of life.
Well, we're happy to have you.
And I love this group, and that's why it doesn't bother me to sit back and to listen to all the things that you people have to say, because it feels like I am family.
You are, and we've all gone through different parts of this. We need each other's support for sure. Thank you. Thank you, Jefferson.
Thank you.
So,
some people came in late on this one because they forgot that this is a Tuesday meeting that starts at 6 Eastern. Jimmy, you said you wanted to say something.
Peter, we do have to say something. Jefferson, we have to say this for our own credibility, but everybody's different, and you may experience things different to somebody else, but essentially, whether you have an orchiectomy or you take chemical castration, it should have very little difference on the side effects. And we need to say that because a lot of people listen in, and we don't want anybody to think that they are going to avoid the side effects of androgen deprivation therapy by going through an orchiectomy. So I'm just making that statement for the for the sake of the group and the sake of the recording.
I understand that, and I'm just going by my experience. I do realize I have my adrenaline glands that still will produce, but that was a chance that I am taking, and I am in charge of my ship. And
right.
My
Exactly.
doctors work with me. My doctors work with me. And I work with them because they have all the knowledge, and I just have the feelings and the understanding of listening to my body. That's all I can tell them.
Okay.
And I thank you all.
Thank
Brave
you.
man. Yeah. Jimmy Greenfield. I don't want to miss you tonight.
It's 8 o'clock, so maybe I'll try another time.
I've got 3 minutes up. Go ahead.
Well, we have a good. This room doesn't get used until 30 minutes after the hour, so we have time for people.
It won't take long anyway. I feel funny about sharing these things. It's very frivolous compared to what you guys are going through here, but it could be useful to anyone who's probably those who are not on ADT or maybe on a vacation. And I don't know what's going to happen with me. I'm in a kind of a sweet spot right now, and sometimes I feel a little sheepish about that around here. But I know that my pathology is such that I'm definitely in the club. Anyway, what's going on is that today I went to the hospital and got a teaching session for the trimix injection for my penis. And as they say on the street, it works, bro. It's very, very effective. And it's very strange because, my wife is in Italy. I don't have any interest in sexual in any other way, but she's, we haven't had sex in 3 years of any kind. And some of this is a conversation for another call, but we have a very, very good marriage, and she's just been sort of really patient with everything, and there's no expectation at all. And the thing is that, when I first got a prostatectomy, I was on my way back to having some erectile function a few months later. But then as soon as I go on ADT, of course, as most guys, Rick is one of the exceptions, I think, my libido has completely disappeared, and penile rehab or any interest in sex was, I wouldn't have known if I'd had any ability because I didn't want any. And then, it's been a year now since I had full return of testosterone, and libido has returned somewhat, but that's been tempered somewhat also by the fact that my erections, even with Viagra and stuff, was only 50, 60% and ephemeral, so I decided to try this stuff. And, I just go back and think that if I had had low volume, classic low volume, 98% curable prostate cancer, and I had a prostatectomy, I would have got an implant almost right away. But the last thing I want to do is get an implant, and then cancer comes back, and I'm sitting here, with this implant and really no desire to use it, dressed up and nowhere to go, so to speak. So I think that the thing that I like about the injectable is that it's here. I use it if I want. If things go downhill at some point, I will not have made another permanent change because I already have an artificial urinary sphincter, and that's just something that really don't want. So anyway, I don't mean to paint this as a glass half empty picture either, because I'm doing very well. I have had now, a year of full return of testosterone, still undetectable VSA, and I feel great and everything like that. But that's why I don't leave this call and I don't leave you. And I so appreciate y'all sharing what you go through, because I'm not in the place that you are. I'm in an enviable position, but it's precarious, and it will always be precarious. And I'm not confused about that. But right now, today, I did the thing a lot of guys won't do. I put a syringe into my penis, and it was nothing. And it's very effective. And I hope that, it's been very psychologically difficult for me to want to re-enter a sexual relationship with my wife, no matter how willing she is, no matter how much it didn't matter to her if I had an erect penis or not. It's just been a really weird thing. And this is just something that kind of makes it a little bit easier to approach it again, even though I know full well that sex and sexual pleasure is not dependent on erect penis, especially a lot of older women. They don't, they're drier, they're different. My wife, to be honest with you, not to blow my horn, because I had prostatectomy, made my penis thinner, shorter, besides not working. And when I told her, that, she said, well, look, if you get it hard again, that's no problem, because it was too big for me anyway. So you talk about, having healthy problems. So anyway, that's what's going on with me. And I'm sorry to even share it, except that for those guys that might, be off ADT, might want to have sexual drive anyway, even if they're on it. And I'm just saying that my experience is this stuff was quick, effective, and all you got to do is get the right dose so that you don't end up with priapism. And it's modern medicine, comes through again for me. We'll see what happens.
How long did it last?
Oh, about an hour.
Okay.
I don't know how long it would have lasted.
Good for you, Jimmy. And the word syringe, up, these long needles and stuff. But this is it's a very small needle. It's not
like
a
very
short
hair.
Yeah, it's not only very small, but it's very short. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's a good thing. I'd forgotten how short it was. And I said to the nurse, I said, listen, might go through the other side. She goes, no matter how small you think you are, it's not going through the other side. Right. So it did not.
You got to remember to move it around too, right? One side.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I'll be active enough to worry about that, but it's nice to have it, I guess.
It reminds me that 5 years ago, I got my ADT, my first Lupron shot at the same time I got my first trimix lesson, which was kind of an odd combination. And I haven't been off the Lupron yet, but yes, the trimix works. And if you stay on Lupron, you don't need it.
Rick is the only guy I've met that said he continued to have libido on ADT. So I don't know if he's the exception that proves the rule, or are there other guys. Feel free. This would be the unusual time for you to say if you're on ADT and still have sex and have sex drive. I'd like to hear from you, because I did not have any sex drive on ADT.
Jeff Marchie's waving, and I mean, it was reduced, but it was there. I mean, it didn't go right.
Still have the drive. It's the desire is still there.
Why am I not? I'm not surprised. Marchie looks like a madman. I can understand.
My wife gets out of the shower now, and I say, "Sweetie, you're dripping on the floor."
Oh.
The challenges we all face, for sure.
I just also wanted to say something about it because Peter, I was really impressed and touched by the notes that you put in the invitation that were in the email invitation, and the whole thing about your manhood and everything like that. And I have I would be lying if I said I didn't like the ability to do this again. But I am so out of touch with that part of being a man that and it was really a big part of my identity. And I was very sexually active for a very long time. And I went through this whole adjustment process of, basically facing a future without it. And now, I have these artificial means. And Jennifer Rubin, is that her name, Rick?
Mhm.
That superstar urologist.
Yes.
When
Yes.
she said that pornography,
Rachel Rubin.
Rachel Rubin, yeah, she said porn actors used to use it, and that's how they stayed hard all the time. I thought, well, that's just good enough for them, and I'll try it. So I don't know.
Yeah, we've got to redefine ourselves for sure. We're still guys, and stay in the game on other levels. It's important.
I have to say to my wife, honey, if you're in the mood, just give me a few minutes and let me go get my syringe out, and I'll be right with you. That's the closest spontaneous as I'm going to get.
Yeah, and you're going to have to practice together. I mean, this is not just you. I mean, she's going to have to do some work too in terms of lubrication and this and that. And I mean, this is if you've been out,
she's
taking. It's going to take her a while to get up to speed too.
She's taking stuff, but again, like that's about enough of that. I mean, there's guys here are thinking like, why are we even talking about this? And I apologize, in a way. Like I say, I'm in a good place, but I have, I'm here for a reason, and I'm just one of those guys that right now is very, very, very lucky, and I understand that completely, and I'm with you.
Well, Jimmy, you do not have to apologize.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you don't have to apologize. I think that it's an important topic. We don't talk about it a lot on this call. It comes up more often on Peter's call, on Peter's low intermediate call. But there are many men that can benefit from this discussion. Even if they're on intermediate therapy, even if they're on a holiday in intermediate hormone therapy, it's good to know about this. So we're pleased you've brought it up. You're doing everybody a service.
Well, thanks. Sometimes I don't know where I belong. I know I belong here. And if anybody saw my pathology report post-op, despite the extra treatment I had, they would know it. But sometimes when I see you guys and what you're going through, and I feel like I'm an outsider. But I know that could change anytime. So I'm not going anywhere.
Good.
Because you've been an inspiration for many of us too. Get us off our butts and get moving many times.
That's all I'm good for, I'm just Mr. Rah-Rah on the exercise.
That's right. Okay, we're kind of at the end. I skipped last because he said he wanted to wait, but Les, you're welcome to say something, and anybody else who came in late, like Jim Barnes, Russell, Alan Moskowitz, anybody else have, and Joe, anybody else have anything that needs to come up tonight before we cut out?
I have CT scans and bone scan this week, so I'll have an update next week. It's great.
Good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck.
So they're still doing.
It's Larry. Did anybody see the interesting or not interesting Times article today in the New York Times? The title is "More Trans Men Are Opting for Phalloplasty." Here's what they.
I saw that. I did see it, Larry.
Yeah. Kind of interesting. I read it carefully, but I'm not going to pursue anything.
Give us a quick summary. What is the article?
What is that?
Well, it was about a woman who felt like she was supposed to be a man for most of her life, and that she was identified finally as a tranny, and had the surgery of phalloplasty, where they install a penis and two little gonads, and there's a little pump they put aside it so you can pump it up. That's about as far as that's the brief, just an interesting article in the New York Times. I remember when I went to a urologist, this is not germane, many years ago with a bladder problem. He was describing this, that he did surgery, just finished surgery for another guy where he installed one of these pump up penises. Just was
Right.
there to, as Herb mentioned.
Right. Yeah, technology's been around for a while.
Yeah, no, this was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Heard about this, but this guy is saying that there's a lot of side effects sometimes. Anyway, it's just in case somebody's interested in searching it out, I could figure out.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up tonight before we pull the plug on this?
Peter,
Well, it's Peter Seibold here. I'm the new guy, and I just want to say thank you very much. I will certainly see you folks again. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, and keep in touch. So I know that Canada has some unique challenges up there.
Oh, I wanted to say one thing to Peter. Can I say something to Peter? Peter, you went past something and you said that you didn't want to hurt yourself because you're on hydromorphone, Dilaudid, and you don't want to think that you would mask whatever's going on. You might hurt yourself and not be as mindful of your body as you would be if you're not on narcotics. Right. My only advice is get off of those narcotics when you can. You don't want to be on a narcotic that strong for very long. It's 8 times the potency of morphine. You need it, beautiful. But narcotics have, as we know, possibility of always, the effects will diminish over time, and dependency is always a possibility. And it's not good. It's real hard to get out of it. You get too far in, even if you're not that type of person, so to speak. But take it, of course, but just be careful.
No, I appreciate that. I've heard that same advice, and makes good sense.
How does it affect your bowels? Does it plug you up, or are you okay?
My balance?
Your bowels.
You constipated?
Oh, yeah. No, that's a great question. I have to be very careful balancing the diarrhea with the constipation, and I do that through Restoralax and Senecot, just changing the amount that I take every couple of days, and I'm able to balance it okay.
Good.
Oh, yeah, diarrhea also?
I have had it, and then moved over to more of a constipation issue, and so by adjusting the amount of Restoralax and Senecot pills that I take, I can keep a proper balance of 1 bowel movement a day. Is the bottom line.
I was hoping maybe you'd break even.
What's that?
The narcotics would offset the diarrhea perfectly, and you wouldn't have to take anything.
Yeah.
I'm just dreaming.
Not all the time. Yeah.
Well, good luck with it.
Thank you anyway.
Peter Seibold, I just sent you a message with the name of the doc in Minneapolis at the Sonic Cancer Center, University of Minnesota. And that's a guy who's relatively close, who you might think about wanting to work with. He comes exceptionally well recommended. He's
great. Okay, yes, I see that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, he has a great bedside manner, and all the guys who have seen him really liked him, and it's closer to you than flying you down to the other end of the country. So that's a possibility for you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Peter Seibel, Carlos. I just want to let you know there is a medication for people who are on long-term opiates and do develop constipation issues. I don't recall the name right offhand. It just came out about a year or two ago. You just check with your doctor.
So, yeah, Peter, if you were off the opioid, what would your pain level be? Is it like a 9 or a 10?
Yeah, high. Yep.
It's pretty serious discomfort. Okay. Okay, we're thinking of you. Keep in touch with us for sure. Okay, guys. Been a good meeting.
Peter Kafka.
Night.
Yes.
Thanks, everyone.
Peter, stop the recording.